The massive station hung in space like a silver wheel, spinning slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from dozens of alien species gathered in the grand chamber. Today was special. Today, humanity would finally stand before the Galactic Council. Captain Taeyang Park walked beside Ambassador Ji-woo Kim through the curved corridors. His uniform was crisp and new, designed specifically for this occasion. Behind them, Lieutenant Hana Lee carried a case containing Earth's gifts and credentials. All three of them felt the weight of this moment. 50 years of observation had passed. 50 years of humanity proving they could travel the stars without destroying themselves. Now came the final test. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Taeyang had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The room was enormous, easily large enough to hold 1,000 beings. Seats rose in circular tiers, and each seat held something alien. Some delegates had scales, others had fur. Some breathed air. Others sat in sealed tanks of liquid. Some looked almost human, while others defied description entirely. At the center of it all stood 3 empty pedestals. The human delegation walked forward, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Every eye and things that were not quite eyes turned to watch them. Ji-woo reached the central pedestal and placed her hand on the activation panel. A hologram of Earth appeared above her head, slowly rotating. She began to speak, her voice calm and clear. She told them about humanity's achievements. The art, the music, the literature, the scientific discoveries made in isolation before first contact. The terraforming of Mars and the underwater cities of Europa. The quantum drives that let human ships travel between stars. She spoke of diversity, of billions of humans working together despite their differences. For 20 minutes, the council listened in polite silence. Then Ji-woo reached the final part of her presentation, the part about military capability and defensive readiness. This was required for all council applicants. Every species had to prove they could defend themselves and contribute to collective security. A harsh clicking sound interrupted her. One of the delegates in the high seat stood up. He was tall, perhaps 3 meters, with a body covered in gleaming black chitin. Forearms gestured dismissively. His mandibles clicked together as he spoke, and the translator rendered his words in cold, precise tones. High Chancellor Vexthar of the Krillian Empire wishes to address the council, the mechanical voice announced. These humans speak of achievements, but I see only primitive mammals who barely escaped their own star system. Their technology is borrowed and crude. Their ships are tiny. Their weapons are laughable. Why does the council waste time with such obvious inferiors? Taeyang felt his jaw tighten, but Ji-woo remained calm. She had expected this. The Krillians were one of the council's founding species, and they had voted against humanity's observation period from the start. Before Ji-woo could respond, another delegate rose. This one was massive and reptilian, with deep red scales and eyes that glowed like embers. War Master Drogon of the Thranix Dominion stepped forward, and his voice rumbled through the chamber like thunder. The Krillians are correct, he said, but let us not simply dismiss them. Let us test them. I propose a demonstration of strength. The humans have a colony on the world they call Kepler 442b. 10,000 humans live there, undefended and weak. I suggest we visit this colony. If the humans cannot protect their own people, they have no place among the stars. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates protested, others voiced agreement. Taeyang wanted to shout, to challenge the threat, but he felt Ji-woo's hand on his arm. A warning. He stayed silent. An ancient voice cut through the noise. The challenge is issued according to tradition. The humans have 72 hours to respond. This session is concluded. The hologram flickered and died. The delegates began to file out, many avoiding the eyes of the human delegation. Only one approached them. She was slender and graceful, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Counselor Melshara of the Velkai stopped a few meters away. You don't understand what just happened, she said softly. Her species was telepathic, and even through the mental shield she wore in public, Taeyang could feel waves of concern radiating from her. The Krillians and Thranix are forming an alliance. This isn't about council membership anymore. They see you as a threat to their dominance. They want to eliminate you before you become stronger. We're not a threat, Ji-woo said. We just want to join the galactic community. Melshara's expression was sad. You're a threat because you're different. Every species here evolved on gentle worlds with few predators. We learned cooperation because resources were abundant. We developed space travel through curiosity, not necessity. You humans are something else, something that frightens them even if they don't understand why. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, my people will vote for you. But votes don't matter now. Only survival does. The three humans returned to their ship in silence. The Horizon's promise was small compared to the alien vessels docked around the station, but she was fast and well built. Taeyang headed straight to the bridge while Jiwoo went to her quarters to compose a message to Earth. Hana pulled up the sensor logs and frowned. Captain, we have a problem. Multiple ships are moving into formation near the Kepler system. I count over 800 vessels. Krillian and Thranic signatures. 800? Taeyang felt his stomach drop. Humanity's entire space fleet numbered less than 40 combat-capable ships. They're not testing us. They're planning to wipe out the colony as a demonstration. What do we do? Hana asked. Taeyang stared at the tactical display. The alien fleet was massive, powerful, and confident. They expected humanity to beg, to plead, to surrender their claim to council membership in exchange for the safety of 10,000 colonists. They expected weakness. They didn't know humans very well. Get me a secure channel to Earth Fleet Command, Taeyang said quietly. Maximum encryption. Then plot a course back to Sol system. We need to brief the Admiral in person. What are you going to tell them? Hana asked. Taeyang watched the alien fleet markers on his screen. 800 ships. A force that could glass a planet. A show of overwhelming power meant to terrify and intimidate. He thought about his grandfather who had fought in the Mars Rebellion. He thought about his academy studies on military history, Thermopylae, Stalingrad, the Alamo. Throughout human history, whenever someone thought they could crush humanity through sheer force, they learned a terrible lesson. I'm going to tell them the truth, Taeyang said. The aliens think they've set a trap for us. They think we're prey. They don't understand that humans are most dangerous when someone threatens our people. They've made a mistake, Hana. They've provoked us. And now we're going to teach them why that was the worst decision they could possibly make. The Horizon's promise turned away from the station and activated her quantum drive. Behind them, the alien fleet continued to gather, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that the small human ship wasn't fleeing in fear. It was racing home to rally every ship, every soldier, every weapon humanity could muster. The warning had been issued. The challenge accepted. And soon the galaxy would learn what humans became when someone threatened their own. The war room deep beneath Geneva was built into solid rock. Admiral Yoon Seo Choi stood at the head of a long table, her face illuminated by the blue glow of holographic displays. Around her sat the commanders of Earth's defense forces. Taeyang had arrived just hours ago and his report had changed everything. 800 ships, said Fleet Commander Dong-Hyun Kim, shaking his head. We have 37 vessels capable of combat. The math is simple. We can't win. The math is never simple when humans are involved, said a quiet voice from the corner. Dr. Hyun-Woo Nam stepped into the light. He was thin and old, with gray hair and sharp eyes behind thick glasses. Admiral, if I may? Yoon Seo nodded. She had requested Dr. Nam's presence specifically. He was the leading expert on alien psychology and galactic history. If anyone could find a weakness, it was him. Dr. Nam activated his own display. Images of various alien species appeared in the air above the table. For the past 50 years, I've studied every member of the Galactic Council. I've analyzed their wars, their conflicts, their military doctrines, and I've discovered something remarkable. They don't actually know how to fight. They have warships, Dong-Hyun objected. Big ones. They have weapons platforms, Dr. Nam corrected. There's a difference. Let me show you something. He pulled up footage of a battle between two alien species. The ships moved in rigid formations, firing at each other from fixed positions. It looked more like a ritual than a real fight. This is what the Council calls warfare. Notice the pattern? They line up, they shoot, whoever has more ships or better shields wins. It's mathematics, not strategy. Why do they fight like that? Asked another commander. Dr. Nam smiled. Because they evolved on paradise worlds. Let me explain. He showed an image of the Krillian homeworld. Lush forests covered a warm planet with no ice caps, no deserts, no extreme weather. The Krillians evolved with no natural predators. Food was everywhere. They never competed with other intelligent species. They reached space because they were curious, not desperate. Another image appeared. The Thranics' homeworld. Same story. More motions, abundant resources. The Thranics are called warriors, but their concept of combat is one-on-one honor duels. They've never experienced genocide or total war. Dr. Nam's expression became serious. Every species in the Council evolved in gentle conditions. They cooperate because cooperation was always rewarded. They fight in predictable ways because they never needed to innovate. They don't understand desperation, adaptation, or the psychology of survival against impossible odds. He pulled up an image of Earth, blue and white and beautiful, but scarred by ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts. Our planet tried to kill us repeatedly. Humans survived ice ages that destroyed most life. We competed with other intelligent hominids and drove them to extinction while simultaneously developing art and culture. We nearly went extinct a dozen times before we invented agriculture. Earth didn't give us anything. We took it. The room was silent. Everyone there knew Earth's history, but hearing it compared to the alien species made the difference stark. The Council species fight for dominance and resources, Dr. Nam continued. Humans fight for survival. They use technology and numbers to win. We use psychology, strategy, and the willingness to do whatever it takes. They've never faced an enemy that uses guerrilla tactics, false retreats, or psychological warfare. They've never fought someone who studies their defeats to improve. They've never encountered a species that documents every battle, every mistake, every lesson learned over thousands of years of constant warfare. Admiral Yunseo leaned forward. What are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying we can win, not despite being outnumbered, but because we've been outnumbered in every important battle in our history. We know how to turn disadvantages into advantages. We know how to make the enemy's strength into their weakness. Most importantly, we know how to fight when logic says we should surrender. Another officer spoke up. They'll see us coming. They have better sensors, faster ships. Let them see us, Yunseo said. She had been listening carefully, and now she understood. We're not going to hide. We're going to send them a message first. We're going to give them one chance to walk away. They won't take it, Taeyang said. They're too confident. I know, Yunseo said. But we need to try. And more importantly, we need to show them exactly who they're dealing with. Dr. Nam, gather every piece of footage we have of human warfare, not the victories, the defeats, the desperate last stands, the battles we lost but fought anyway. Dr. Nam nodded slowly. You want to frighten them? I want to warn them, Yunseo corrected. What they do with that warning is their choice. Down in the barracks, Corporal Da-Yun Song and her Marine unit were preparing for deployment. Dae-Yun was young, barely 25, but she had trained her entire adult life for combat. She checked her gear methodically while her squad mates talked. 800 ship, said Private Xiak Jin-Yu. That's insane. We're all going to die. Maybe, Da-Yun said calmly. She had finished checking her weapon and now started on her armor. But we'll take a lot of them with us. That's the job. How can you be so calm? Seokjin asked. Da-On looked at him. My grandmother fought in the Mars Rebellion. She told me stories about being trapped in the underground cities when the Loyalist forces bombarded the surface. Everyone said they should surrender. The enemy had orbital superiority, more troops, better weapons. Logic said they couldn't win. What happened? Seokjin asked. They won, Da-Un said simply. Because the enemy didn't understand that humans don't calculate odds the same way everyone else does. We don't fight until victory is certain. We fight until we can't fight anymore. And usually, somewhere in that process, we figure out how to win. She stood up and addressed the whole squad. Listen up. We're going to Kepler 442b. There's a good chance we'll have to defend that colony against an overwhelming force. Some of you are scared. That's fine. Fear keeps you sharp. But remember this. Those aliens out there, they're used to enemies that surrender when the math is bad. They're used to civilized warfare with rules and honor. We're going to show them something different. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten humans. We're going to show them why Earth has only produced one sapient species, and why that species now travels the stars. The squad was silent for a moment. Then someone started a slow clap. Others joined in. By the time Da-Un left the barracks, the whole unit was ready. Not confident they would win, but absolutely certain they would fight. Back in the war room, Admiral Yunseo looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet was moving into position near Kepler 442b. They had 72 hours before the deadline expired. It would take at least 40 hours to get the fleet to the colony, and they needed time to prepare the defense. "Get me Captain Tae Yang," she ordered. "He's going back to the council station with our response. And someone find Engineer Bo-Ra Shin. I want every ship we have modified for maximum combat efficiency. Strip out the comfortable quarters. Remove the recreational facilities. Turn every vessel into a fighting machine." "Admiral," Dong-hyun said carefully, "if we do this, if we fight them and win, the council will fear us. They might try to eliminate humanity entirely." "I know," Yunseo said. "But if we back down, they'll see us as weak. They'll think they can push us around whenever they want. We need to make a stand here. We need to show them that humanity can be a valuable ally, but a terrible enemy." She looked at the blue marble of Earth on the display. So small, so fragile. But it had produced the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. Not because humans were the strongest or the smartest, but because Earth had taught them to never give up. To adapt, to overcome, to survive. "Send a message to all fleet personnel," Yunseo said. "We're going to war. Not because we want to, but because someone threatened our people. We're going to show the galaxy what that means. And when it's over, they'll never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again." The Galactic Council chamber was full again, but this time the atmosphere was different. Word had spread about the challenge issued to humanity. Many delegates had come out of curiosity, wanting to see how the primitive newcomers would respond. Some expected begging, others expected surrender. None of them expected what actually happened. Ambassador Ji-woo Kim walked to the central platform alone. Captain Tae Yang and Lieutenant Hana remained at the entrance, standing at attention like honor guards. Ji-woo carried a single data core in her hand. High Chancellor Vexthar clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. "Have the humans come to plead for mercy? Perhaps to offer tribute in exchange for their colony's safety?" Ji-woo looked up at the Krillian leader. Her face was calm, her voice steady. "No, Chancellor. We've come to deliver a warning. What you do with it is your choice." She placed the data core in the reader. The holographic display above her head flickered to life. What appeared was not what anyone expected. The first image showed ancient humans in primitive armor, holding simple bronze weapons. They stood in a narrow mountain pass facing an army that stretched to the horizon. The translator provided context. 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, holding back an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die. They fought anyway. They held for 3 days. The image changed. Medieval soldiers defending a castle with nothing but courage and determination. The siege of Constantinople. The defenders outnumbered 50 to 1. They held for months. Another change. Black and white footage of a ruined city in winter. Soldiers fighting in the snow, starving and freezing. Surrounded on all sides. The Battle of Stalingrad. The enemy had superior weapons, air support, and numbers. The defenders were trapped with no hope of relief. They fought in the ruins for months. They won. Ji-woo let the images continue. She showed the Warsaw Uprising, the Alamo, the Battle of Britain, the defense of Mars Colony during the Civil War. Every image showed humans fighting against impossible odds, outnumbered, outgunned, logically doomed. "Notice something?" Ji-woo said quietly. "These are not our victories. These are our defeats and desperate stands. These are the battles where every logical analysis said we should surrender, where any reasonable species would have given up." The images kept coming. More and more examples of humans refusing to quit even when quitting made perfect sense. Counselor Melshara stood up abruptly, her pale blue skin flushed darker with emotion. "Stop," she said. "Please stop." Her telepathic abilities made her sensitive to emotional content, and the recordings were overwhelming her. "Council members, you need to understand what you're seeing. This isn't just historical data. This is a fundamental difference in psychology. They're just primitive battles," Vexthar said dismissively. "Ancient weapons and crude tactics. What does this have to do with modern warfare?" Ji-woo stopped the display. "Chancellor, you're looking at the wrong thing. The weapons don't matter. The tactics don't matter. What matters is what these recordings prove. Humanity doesn't calculate victory the way you do. We don't fight until the odds are bad. We fight until we physically can't fight anymore. And here's the important part. We document our defeats. We study them. We learn from them. We teach them to our children so they can do better." She let that sink in for a moment. "You asked what this has to do with modern warfare?" "Everything. Because the psychology hasn't changed. We still fight the same way. The only difference is now we have better weapons, better tactics, and thousands of years of learning from our mistakes. War Master Drogon stood, his red scales gleaming. This is meant to frighten us? You show us how often your species has been defeated and expect us to fear you? Yes, Jiwoo said simply. Because you should. If this is what we do when we lose, imagine what we do when we win. An ancient voice spoke from the upper galleries. Counselor Thasmir, one of the oldest beings in the chamber, leaned forward. His species had been traveling the stars for over 1,000,000 years. Ambassador, I have a question. How many sapient species evolved on Earth? Jiwoo looked surprised by the question. Just one. Humans. No, Thasmir said softly. I've read your evolutionary history. There were at least 6 intelligent hominid species on your world at various times. Neanderthals, Denisovans, others. Where are they now? The chamber went very quiet. Jiwoo met the ancient being's gaze. Extinct. Some interbred with Homo sapiens. Others were outcompeted. Some were driven to extinction through direct conflict. So humans didn't just survive Earth's harsh conditions, Thasmir said. They eliminated every other intelligent competitor. You're not just survivors. You're the last ones standing after a long elimination process. Vexthar made a dismissive gesture. Ancient history. The challenge stands. Our fleet is already in position at the human colony. They have 40 hours to evacuate or surrender their council application. This discussion is pointless. Jiwoo picked up the data core. Then I'll say this one more time. The human fleet will be at Kepler 442b. We will not surrender. We will not evacuate. And when your fleet arrives, they will face humans defending their home. I'm giving you this warning because despite everything, we hope to join the council as friends. But if you force us to be enemies, you'll learn why humanity survived Earth when 6 other intelligent species didn't. She bowed formally and left the chamber. Taeyang and Hana followed her out. Behind them, the council erupted in argument. Melshara was pleading with other delegates to stop the challenge. Vexthar was dismissing her concerns. Drogon was laughing about how the humans thought ancient battles would save them from modern warships. Only Thasmir remained silent, watching the empty platform where Jiwoo had stood. He had seen something in those recordings that the others missed. A pattern, a philosophy, a fundamental truth about humanity that should have terrified them all. Across the galaxy, the Krillian Thranix fleet continued its advance. 847 warships moving in perfect formation. The commanders were confident, already planning victory celebrations. Intelligence reports showed the human colony was poorly defended. Just a few orbital platforms and perhaps a dozen ships. It would be over quickly. Captain Kyung-Soo Han watched the alien fleet from his stealth ship, the Shadow Walker. His vessel was small and designed for reconnaissance, not combat. He'd been following the aliens for 2 days, gathering data on their movements, communications, and tactical patterns. What he learned worried him. Not because the aliens were especially dangerous, but because they were so predictable. They used the same formations constantly. Their communication protocols were unencrypted. Their ships moved in ways that prioritized looking impressive over being tactically sound. They fight like it's a parade, Kyung-Soo muttered to his co-pilot. They're showing off, not preparing for actual combat. Is that good for us or bad? The co-pilot asked. I don't know, Kyung-Soo admitted. It means they're overconfident. But it also means they genuinely don't understand what they're walking into. They think this is going to be easy. He sent an encrypted burst transmission back to the fleet. All his observations, all his analysis. Then he settled in to follow the alien armada to its destination. Back on Earth in a military research facility, engineer Bora Shin was doing the impossible. She had been given 36 hours to modify every human warship for maximum combat efficiency. It should have taken months. She was going to do it in 1 day. Strip out everything not essential to fighting or survival, she ordered her teams. I don't care if the ships are uncomfortable. I don't care if there's nowhere to sleep properly. Turn them into weapons. She worked through the night, implementing modifications that had been theoretical until now. Redundant power systems, emergency backup controls, weapons that could fire in multiple modes. Every ship became more resilient, more dangerous, more able to keep fighting even after taking critical damage. Admiral Yunseo wants us to win, Bora said to her assistant. But even if we can't win, we can make sure we hurt them badly enough that they never want to fight humans again. By the time the human fleet began assembling at Kepler 442b, every ship had been transformed. They looked the same on the outside, but inside they were rebuilt around a single purpose: to fight to survive, to make the enemy regret starting this battle. The colonists on Kepler 442b watched the ships arrive. 10,000 humans living on a world they had transformed from barren rock to habitable paradise. They knew what was coming. They had been offered evacuation. Every single one refused to leave. Governor Subin Park stood in the colony's command center, watching the fleet take up defensive positions. "How long until the aliens arrive?" she asked. 12 hours, her aide replied. Subin nodded. Around the colony, defensive positions were being prepared. Weapons were being distributed. Medical facilities were being readied. The colonists weren't soldiers, but they were humans, and humans knew how to fight when their homes were threatened. "Send a message to Admiral Yoon Seo," Subin said. "Tell her Kepler 442b stands ready. We won't let her down." In space above the colony, the human fleet waited. 37 ships against 800. The math was terrible. The odds were impossible. It was exactly the kind of situation humanity had faced countless times throughout history. And just like all those other times, humanity was going to fight anyway. The alien fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442b system. 847 warships arranged in a massive wall formation that stretched for thousands of kilometers. It was designed to be overwhelming, to make any enemy lose hope at the sight of such massive force. High Chancellor Vexthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "The humans are here." "How many ships?" 37 confirmed vessels, Chancellor, his tactical officer reported. "They're positioned in the asteroid field near the colony world." "Defensive formation." Vexthar laughed, a harsh chittering sound. 37? They brought everything they have, and it's not even enough to bother us. This will be over in minutes. All ships advance. Maintain wall formation. Let's show these primitives what real power looks like. The massive fleet began moving forward. A wall of metal and energy shields that seemed unstoppable. War Master Drogoon watched from his own command ship, positioned at the center of the Thranix contingent. He was less amused than Vexthar. Something felt wrong. "The humans aren't running," he observed. "They should be running." "They're too stupid to run," his second-in-command said. "They think they can defend with those tiny ships." Drogon wasn't so sure, but he kept his concerns to himself. The fleet advanced like a tidal wave of destruction. On the bridge of the human flagship Indomitable, Admiral Yoon Seo watched the alien fleet approach. Her face was calm, but her mind was racing through calculations and contingencies. Beside her, Captain Taeyang monitored the tactical display. "They're maintaining that wall formation," Taeyang said, just like Captain Kyung-soo reported. "No variation, no tactical flexibility." "Good," Yoon Seo said. "It means they're predictable. All ships, prepare for dispersal pattern Delta. Wait for my signal." The human fleet remained in position, seemingly frozen with fear as the massive alien armada approached. The distance closed. 50,000 kilometers, 40,000, 30,000. "Admiral, they're entering our engagement range," the weapons officer reported. "Hold," Yoon Seo said calmly. 20,000 kilometers. The alien ships began charging their weapons. The humans still didn't move. "Admiral?" Taeyang asked quietly. "Hold," she repeated. 15,000 kilometers. The alien fleet began firing. Long-range energy beams that lit up the darkness of space. The first shots went wide, missing the human ships by hundreds of kilometers. The aliens were firing at extreme range, trying to force the humans to break formation. "Now," Yoon Seo said. "Execute dispersal pattern Delta." All ships scatter. The human fleet exploded outward like a startled flock of birds. Ships broke in every direction, diving into the asteroid field, spreading out across thousands of kilometers. To the aliens, it looked like panic, like prey fleeing from predators. "They're running." Vexthar shouted triumphantly. "All ships, break formation and pursue. Hunt them down." It was exactly what Yoon Seo wanted. The rigid wall formation broke apart as individual alien ships and small groups began chasing the fleeing humans into the asteroid field. The careful coordination dissolved into chaos as each commander tried to claim the glory of destroying a human vessel. "Phase 1 complete," Yoon Seo said quietly. "They've split their forces. Now we show them why that was a mistake." Deep in the asteroid field, Commander Ji-hoon Bayek led his fighter wing through the maze of spinning rocks. His squadron consisted of 20 small, fast ships that the aliens had barely noticed. Too small to be threats, they assumed. Just scouts or shuttles. They were wrong. All wings target the communication relays on the alien cruisers, Ji-hoon ordered. Missile approach pattern 7. Go. The fighters accelerated to attack speed, weaving between asteroids in patterns no alien pilot could match. Human pilots trained in atmospheric flight in chaotic three-dimensional combat. The aliens trained for open space battles in predictable formations. The first alien cruiser never saw the fighters coming. 20 missiles struck its communication arrays simultaneously, leaving it blind and deaf to the rest of the fleet. By the time the aliens realized they were under attack, Ji-hoon's wing was already gone, racing toward the next target. Second wave incoming, Ji-hoon reported. They're sending fighters after us. Let them come, Ji-hoon said. He led his wing deeper into the asteroids, into a section where the rocks were densest. The alien fighters followed, firing wildly. They were fast but not agile. When Ji-hoon suddenly reversed course, leading his wing straight back at the pursuers, the alien formation panicked. Ships collided with asteroids trying to avoid the head-on attack. The humans weaved through the chaos like they were born to it, taking out alien fighters with precise shots before vanishing back into the rock field. On the colony surface, Private Seok Jin-yu crouched in a defensive position behind reinforced barriers. His unit was positioned in the industrial sector, the most likely landing zone for ground forces. Corporal Dae-yun Song was 3 positions over, her rifle ready. Movement in orbit, their lieutenant announced. 3 Thranix assault ships breaking through. Landing craft incoming. Suk-jin felt his heart racing but kept his breathing steady. He'd trained for this. They all had. The landing craft came down in the open area between the industrial buildings, exactly where the humans expected. The Thranix warriors who emerged were impressive. 3 meters tall, covered in thick scales carrying energy weapons that could punch through concrete. They moved in formation, confident and powerful. Then they stepped into the kill zone. The industrial sector wasn't just where humans worked. It was a carefully prepared trap. Dae-yun gave the signal and suddenly the Thranix were taking fire from a dozen directions. Buildings that looked abandoned were actually firing positions. The ground they stood on was mined. Heavy industrial equipment, mining lasers and excavators had been converted into improvised weapons. The Thranix tried to return fire, but the humans weren't fighting fair. They used hit-and-run tactics, sniper positions, and constant movement. When the Thranix tried to charge one position, they'd be hit from behind. When they tried to form up, explosives would scatter them. They fight without honor, one Thranix commander roared. They fight to win, Dae-yun muttered, putting another precise shot through the alien's weapon. There's a difference. In space, the main battle was reaching its peak. What had started as a chaotic pursuit had become a calculated slaughter. The human ships had led the aliens into carefully mapped positions. Now the trap closed. Admiral Yunseo gave the order. All ships reverse course. Pattern Sigma. Light them up. The fleeing human ships suddenly stopped running. They turned and accelerated back toward their pursuers. But they weren't attacking randomly. Every ship had been led to a specific position where multiple human vessels could engage it from different angles. Engineer Bo-Ra's modifications proved their worth. The human ships fired weapons the aliens had never encountered. Railguns that punched through energy shields like they weren't there. EMP missiles that fried electronic systems. Hunter-killer drones small enough to evade point defense but deadly enough to cripple larger ships. The alien fleet was faster and had better shields. But the humans had something the aliens lacked. They had adaptability. Every human captain was authorized to modify tactics on the fly. Every ship had redundant systems that kept them fighting even after sustaining damage that would cripple an alien vessel. The Defiant was the first human ship to fall. A Krillian dreadnought caught her in a crossfire and her shields collapsed, but before she died, her captain rammed the dreadnought at full speed. His ship's self-destruct timed to detonate on impact. The explosion took out 3 alien vessels. The Marathon lost all main power when an energy beam cut through her engine section. She should have been dead in space. Instead, her crew switched to auxiliary power, manually aimed their remaining weapons, and kept fighting. They destroyed 2 more alien ships before finally succumbing to sustained fire. Vexthar watched his fleet falling apart and couldn't understand what was happening. The humans were outnumbered 20-1. They should be losing. They were losing. But they were taking so many aliens with them that the victory was becoming meaningless. How are they doing this? he demanded. Their technology is inferior. Their ships are smaller. They should have broken by now. His tactical officer studied the displays. Chancellor, they're not fighting like any enemy we've encountered. They're using asymmetric tactics, guerrilla strategies. They're forcing us to fight in ways that negate our numerical advantage. War Master Drogon came to a realization that filled him with dread. They're not trying to win. They're trying to hurt us, to make this so costly that we never want to fight humans again. He was right. Every human ship that fell took multiple alien vessels with it. Every tactic was designed to maximize enemy casualties. The humans were fighting like every battle was personal, like every ship lost was a blood debt that had to be repaid. All ships, withdraw, Drogon ordered suddenly. We're leaving. We're winning. Vexthar protested, are we? Drogon pointed at the tactical display. The alien fleet had started with 847 ships. They now had less than 500 combat-effective vessels. The human fleet was down to 21 ships, but those 21 were still fighting with undiminished ferocity. Governor Subin Park walked through the ruins of her colony's industrial sector. Buildings were collapsed, streets were cratered, and smoke still rose from dozens of impact sites. The Battle of Kepler 442b, as the historians would call it, had been over for 3 days. The cost was becoming clear: 417 colonists dead, another 600 wounded, 20% of the colony's infrastructure destroyed, but the colony still stood. 10,000 humans remained, and they were already rebuilding. Subin stopped at a memorial wall where the names of the dead were being inscribed. Each name was carved by hand, a tradition humanity had maintained for thousands of years. She placed her hand on the cold stone and whispered a promise. We'll make this mean something. We'll make sure you didn't die for nothing. Behind her, construction crews were already clearing debris. Engineers were restoring power systems. Doctors were treating the wounded. The colonists hadn't waited for help from Earth. They had immediately begun the work of recovery. Because that's what humans did. They endured. They rebuilt. They continued. High above the colony, what remained of the human fleet held position. 21 ships out of the original 37. Each one was scarred and damaged, but everyone was still capable of fighting if needed. Admiral Yunseo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, reviewing the casualty reports. 2,300 naval personnel dead. 16 ships destroyed, but they had stopped a fleet of over 800 warships. The alien fleet had limped back to Council space with less than 400 ships intact. The Krillian-Thranix alliance had lost more vessels in one battle than in their previous 50 years of conflicts combined. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth, her communications officer announced. The Galactic Council has requested an emergency session. Ambassador Ji Woo is asking for your presence via holographic link. Yunseo nodded. Connect me. The image that appeared showed the council chamber. It was packed with delegates and the atmosphere was tense. Ji Woo stood at the central platform, looking tired but determined. When she saw Yunseo's image appear, she gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Councillor Melshara was speaking. The council must understand what we've witnessed. This wasn't just a military engagement. This was a demonstration of fundamental differences in how humans approach conflict. They didn't fight to dominate or prove superiority. They fought to survive and protect their own, and they proved they will sacrifice everything to achieve that goal. High Chancellor Vexthar, looking diminished and shaken, tried to speak. They violated the conventions of civilized warfare. They used underhanded tactics. They fought without honor. They fought to win, said a deep voice. Veteran Commander Dong Hyun Kim had been invited to address the council. He was old now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were sharp and his voice was steady. Honorable counselors, you asked humanity to prove our worth through combat. We did, but I don't think you understood what you were asking for. He activated a display showing footage from the battle, not the dramatic explosions or grand tactics, but the small moments. Human crew members giving their lives to save their ships, medics treating wounded enemies alongside their own people, captains choosing to minimize alien casualties when they could have inflicted more damage. You see violence and cruelty, Dong Hyun said, but you're missing the most important part. We could have killed more. We could have pursued the fleeing fleet all the way back to your core worlds. We could have made this a war of extermination. We chose not to. Because despite everything, we came here seeking peace and cooperation. We fought because you forced us to, but we stopped when we made our point. The chamber was silent. Ancient Counselor Thasimir stood slowly. Commander, I have studied your species extensively since this battle. I've compared you to historical records. 60,000 years ago, my people encountered another species with characteristics similar to humanity. They were apex predators from a harsh world. They fought like you fight, with adaptation and psychological warfare. They became conquerors. Eventually, the entire council united to stop them. It took 50 years and cost billions of lives. The chamber tensed. Was this a threat? A declaration that humanity would be eliminated before they became too dangerous? Thasimir continued. But there was a crucial difference. The Vraxel never showed restraint. They never spared defeated enemies. They never documented their mistakes to improve. They conquered because they could. Humans fight because they must and stop when they can. That difference matters. He looked directly at Yunseo's holographic image. Admiral, your species terrifies us. You've made that clear. But you've also shown something else. You've shown that you can be terrifying and still choose not to be. That takes wisdom we didn't expect. Jiwoo seized the moment. Counselors, humanity requests full membership in the Galactic Council. Not as conquerors or dominators, but as partners. We know we're different. We know we fight in ways you find disturbing. But that difference can be valuable. The galaxy is vast, and there may be threats out there that require our particular skills. Threats that your peaceful civilizations aren't equipped to handle. Let us be your shield. War Master Drogon stood, and everyone tensed. But his voice was thoughtful, not aggressive. The ambassador speaks truth. The Thranix Dominion has always prided itself on being warriors. But we've just learned that we don't actually know what war is. Not real war. Not survival warfare. The humans do. If there comes a time when the Council faces an existential threat, we will need humans on our side, not as enemies. The vote was called. It took hours. There were conditions and restrictions. Human military expansion would be monitored. Human colonies would accept Council observers. Humanity would be required to share tactical knowledge with Council defense forces. But in the end, the vote passed. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council. Captain Taeyang watched the vote results from his ship and felt a strange mixture of relief and concern. We got what we wanted, he said to Lieutenant Hana, but at what cost? They fear us now, Hana observed. They'll always see us as dangerous. Maybe that's not entirely bad, Taeyang said. Fear can be the beginning of respect, and respect can become trust, given time. On Earth, in the Military Command Center, Dr. Hyunwoo Nam compiled his final report on the battle. His analysis was thorough and troubling. The Council species had been shocked by human tactics because they had no frame of reference for them. But more worrying was what the battle had revealed about galactic security. The Council has been peaceful for so long that they've forgotten how to fight real wars, he wrote in his report. Their defensive doctrine is based on shows of force and numerical superiority. If a truly hostile alien species ever enters Council space, one that understands warfare the way humans do, the Council would be helpless. He paused, considering his next words carefully. Humanity has become the Council's insurance policy. We're the species they call when diplomacy fails and actual fighting is required. This will define our role in galactic civilization for generations to come. We must be careful not to become what we fought against. We must remain the shield, not the sword. On Kepler 442b, Corporal Da-eun Song stood with her unit at a memorial service for the fallen. Private Seok Jin was beside her, his arm in a sling from a wound he'd taken in the battle. The governor was speaking about sacrifice and courage, but Da-eun's mind was elsewhere. She thought about the Thranix warriors they'd fought, how they'd been brave but unprepared for the reality of human combat, how some of them at the end had looked almost relieved to surrender, like they'd faced something they didn't understand and wanted it to be over. Do you think they'll try again? Seok Jin asked quietly. No, Da-eun said. They learned their lesson. But others might not have. The galaxy is big and we're the new species. Someone else will eventually test us. And we'll be ready, Seok Jin said with confidence. Da-eun nodded, but privately she wondered. Being ready wasn't the same as being willing. She'd killed in battle, done her duty, protected her colony, but she took no joy in it. She hoped that quality, the ability to be deadly while hating the necessity of it, was what would keep humanity from becoming monsters. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Yunseo called a meeting of her senior staff. The battle is over, but our work is just beginning. The Council wants us to help train their defense forces, to teach them how to fight against threats they've never encountered. This is going to be delicate. We need to make them more capable without making them more aggressive. Can we do that? Captain Taeyang asked. Can we teach the philosophy of survival warfare without teaching them to be like us? We have to try, Yunseo said. Because if we fail, we become the very thing they fear, the dangerous predator species that conquers because it can. That's not who we are. We fought to protect, not to dominate. We need to remember that. She looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Humanity has announced itself to the galaxy. We've shown them what we're capable of. Now comes the harder part, proving that we can be trusted with that capability, proving that Earth's harsh lessons taught us wisdom as well as strength.